Hi guys, my name is Cass Clark. I am here sitting in my cute little office room. I've been living in this house for about a year and a half and I wanted to do a video on how I bought this house at age 21 with very little help from exterior factors. Disclaimer, I did have a little bit of help with my insurance payment from my family, and then I did rent with roommates with my boyfriend and his mom for like 5 or 6 months prior to buying the house. That way I could stack up a little bit of extra cash. Also, to continue, disclaimer, I am not trying to sound tone deaf in the climate that we're in right now in the USA. This is where I'm based, so it might not apply the same way if you're in another country if you're watching this. But I'm not trying to sound like I'm not taking other people's situations into account, because I was not making a lot of money for the area that I live in. I was not working any ritzy fancy job. I wasn't doing anything crazy with my life, and I did not certainly have my parents pay for me and help me do this. Shout out to the people though who did help me. Like my boyfriend and his mom helped me out a lot, and then my uncle helped me pay my insurance payment because I didn't know in the last minute. It kind of jumped on me when I had very little time to prep extra cash. So that's super fun. I have my iPad here. I've made a little, oh, I don't like that. I made a Google slide so I can keep my thoughts organized. So if you guys see me with my little thingy, this is what I'm doing. So I bought this house when I was 21 years old. I bought it about 5 days before I turned 22, so I was cutting it close, but I can still say that I bought it at age 21, even though I had to grind for a couple years to get it to that point where I could. So the first thing that I want to talk about is making the decision if it's something that you actively want to commit to, or if it's something that's not realistic for you. First of all, the area that I live in, it is much more affordable to buy a home than it is in the majority of the United States, and I am lucky and I'm grateful for that. Every single day, I live in the Midwest, so depending on which town you live in the Midwest, if you live in a bigger city, it's a little bit less likely for you to be able to afford something so quick. And then if you live on the East or West Coast, obviously it's going to be a little bit less likely as well that you could find anything in good condition that you're going to be able to afford. Also, I'm not living in a trailer. I posted this one time on Facebook and I had a bunch of people dogging on me saying I'm living in a trailer. It's not a trailer. But it does depend heavily on location, what you can afford. This is something that I would say is more achievable for people that are, again, living in the Midwest, living in southern states, or if you have a higher paying job in any of the other areas or bigger cities, then you're also probably fine. But again, this is more catered to people that live in the Midwest, that aren't making a ton of money, or are making minimum-ish wage, maybe slightly more than minimum wage, because that's the situation that I was in. And I also had a bunch of people tell me I couldn't do it, for a very long time, and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, because I'm gonna get my way, I'm gonna do what I wanna do, obviously. So making the decision to commit, you have to be in the mindset that you know that you can do it and that that's something that you wanna do. I would say the first step to anybody who's looking into buying a home, definitely make a paper list. Get your notebook, get it right now, because I'm rambling and I'm kind of organized, but not the most. So you get your notebook and you're gonna wanna write down the pros and cons of owning your own home versus renting your own home, because there are pros and cons to both. Real quick, from 2020 to 2023, I was living in an income-based apartment. I have other videos, not very good quality videos, but I have videos of me in that apartment at the time. I was paying 30% of my income, because again, it was income-based. So from 2020 to 2023, I spent almost $20,000 on rent. I mathed that up, I calculated it, and that is about a third of what my house costs. So in 3 years of renting, I spent almost a third of a house, or a fifth of a more expensive house. And I just don't like thinking about all that money that I had just going to the landlord instead of going into equity for myself. That actually makes me really upset and really uncomfortable. So that is a big motivating factor as to why I'm I don't want to rent anymore. I want to own my own house. I want to be able to paint my room PP yellow if I want to. I want to be able to tear up the carpet and stain the floors if I want to, whatever. Things like that. Some pros to renting though are if there are any damages, if your air conditioning unit goes out, if your fridge goes out, if you have a power outage, if you have plumbing issues, it is your landlord's responsibility to fix it. Super convenient. To some, that is worth the price of paying rent for X amount of time, because it's very annoying. And I'll tell you, once I moved into here, nobody's going to help you with things like that. Nobody's going to help you with general maintenance. No one's going to help you with your devices going out. No one's going to help you mow your goddamn yard, and you have to mow your yard every freaking week, or else the government's going to come take you away. They're not really going to take you away. They're just going to get mad at you and send you a bunch of fines and fees. So there are things to think about. It is very fun to romanticize having a house, but I do have certain days where I miss my apartment and I'm like, oh, I miss not having to worry about the yard work. I miss not having to worry about, you know, how much my gas bill is going to be this month, because the gas is very expensive. I have an old house. It runs on radiant heat. So my gas bill in the winter is really like $100 to $200, which is crazy just to heat the house. I guess I could just not be a lizard and have a colder house, but we're not gonna do that. So again, very important thing to have the right headspace going into this, and to look into your pros and cons of owning versus renting before you start this process, because it's very important, and I feel like a lot of people skip that step. I know some people that have bought houses that regret it, or just people that are happier renting, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're okay with the finances that are entailed with that. So that is the first pillar, is making sure it's something you really want to do and that you can put up with all the work that goes into owning a house, because it is a lot, and if you don't take care of things, they will bite you in the ass 10 times harder later down the line. Found that out the hard way. Okay, so now I'm going to go into prep work, which is the stages where you know you're going to buy a house. You need to start doing things and getting things in order. You have to have certain things to be able to actually be qualified to buy a house in the area that I'm in. Most areas in the US, you need this. The first thing, the most important thing that I would say, is to start building credit. I don't remember exactly when I opened my credit card. I think I opened it in like 2022, something like that. So you're gonna wanna open a line of credit, whether it's a secured line of credit at your personal bank, or you get like a Capital One credit card or something. That's what I started off with. I've heard a lot of people say that they hate Capital One, but I've had a lot of good luck with it, with building my credit personally. I've never had any issues with Capital One. So you're gonna wanna start to build your credit. If you guys want, I can do a separate video on how I built my credit from basically nothing to 720 points, because I did that in like 2.5 years, and I have really good credit right now. I have a high credit score, and I also have like a big chunk of big line of credit. I have like $15,000 in credit, and then when I talk to other people that I know, they're like, oh, I only have like $3,000. I only have like $500 in credit. So I can help you guys with that if you're interested in. The second thing, aside from getting credit, first of all, credit, you usually need a score of 580 to 620 to be approved for any type of mortgage loan, which isn't too crazy. It's not something that's like too hard to get, but just keep in mind it's about 580 to 620 is where you're probably safe. Excuse me, 620 and higher, you're definitely in the good zone. You're good. I burped like 4 times. We'll see if I cut that out or not. I'm drinking my Red Bull to get jacked up. Second thing, saving money. Even if you're like, oh, I want to buy a house in 5 years, just save whatever you can. Save your money, put it back, put it into a high yield savings account, preferably, because then you'll earn interest off of it. The only con of having that high yield savings account is when you go to pull it out, there will be a wait time on it. So you might try to withdraw your money and you won't be able to get it for like 48 hours or something like that. That's the only con, I would say. But you could also just have it in a regular savings account. Don't hoard cash. That'll give you issues down the line. But always have money that you're putting aside in savings. Something that I do, and it's a little bit ridiculous, but usually what I do is when I get my paycheck, if my paycheck is like $1,200, then I'm probably going to take the $200 out in cash for my bi-weekly cash budget, and then I'm gonna put however much for my bills in my checking account, and then I'm gonna put like 500 or 600 into my savings account, so that I'm always like stacking and stacking and stacking money to save. I know that not everyone's in a situation where they can do that, but you could do like the 30-50-20 method, where you always put 20% of your income into savings if you could afford to. And even if you can't afford to do that, anything is better than nothing. Even if you're putting $50 a month into your savings account, that's still better than not saving at all. I didn't start saving until like, again, 2022 or so, and I regretted that because if I had started saving in 2020 when I started working, I would have like a bigger fund and I would be better off than I am now, and I would have had less issues with the process. The third pillar is your employment. You need to have consistent employment on your record around the time that you're thinking about purchasing your home. If you've worked at 4 different places for like a couple months each, that's going to be a red flag to the loan officers, because they're going to think that you're not like as consistent as an employee, and that your jobs might be volatile and you might lose employment. They'll be worried to give you a loan. Sucks, stupid. I know job hopping is actually better financially wise than keeping the same job, but I would recommend finding a job that you like about a year before you plan on buying a home, and then keeping that job for at least the year preceding to buying the home. As soon as you get the mortgage and get your keys and get your house, you can jump and get whatever job you want. You can do whatever you want financially with your jobs, but you want to have at least 1 year, preferably 2, year and a half, anything like that. It's going to look better. It's going to make you look trustworthy and responsible and all that stuff. So I had stayed working at McDonald's. I was working at McDonald's when I bought my house. Crazy. I stayed working there for about 4 years, maybe 3.5. Maybe I'm being too generous. Either 3.5 or 4 years I worked there to mostly accumulate the stability. And also I was going for management, and I wanted to build up my skills and all that crazy stuff. The fourth pillar, debts. You're going to want to pay down any debts that you have, if at all possible. Like, I am lucky I don't have student loans because I didn't go to school fresh out of high school. I don't have any car loans because I have a beater. So I drive my beater around town, takes me to A, B, and C, just with no air conditioner. So we'll take it. I love my beater. You're going to want to pay down your debts, because when you're applying for your mortgage, they have something called a debt to income ratio, and they will map that up and say you're making $2,000 a month, but your car payment is $500 a month. That's going to bring your ratio way down. And if you are approved for a mortgage, it's going to make that amount so much smaller, because they are factoring the debt in that you already have to pay. Right, if that makes sense. So they're going to factor in the debt that you already have to pay off into basically what you can afford, because they want to make sure that you can afford your payments, so that they're making money off of your interest. And if they don't think that you can make the payments, they're not going to give you the loan, because they have to make money off of it. And they don't want people that are going to be looking like a liability just because they have a car. There's nothing wrong with buying a car, by the way. But if you are wanting a home and you don't already have car payments, I would recommend to buy the home before buying the car, because the home loan will not affect the car loan, but it will the other way around. So super crazy. Again, that debt to income ratio, I'm going to put that math equation like right up here. I'm going to keep my fingers here, so when I'm editing this, I can see that I need to put the debt to income ratio right here and how you math it out. When you are applying for this, your debt to income ratio should be 35% or less. So your debt that you're paying every month should be 35% or less of your monthly average income. Right up here, I need to put it up here. The first-time homeowners loan is a little bit more flexible with that. I think they'll give you like 40%, but most want it to be under 30. The lower, the better. The lower, the better. So if you don't have any debt, awesome, you're in a good position. And if you do have debt, if you have a car payment, maybe get consistent employment somewhere that you somewhat enjoy. Save your bank while you're building credit and working that job, and try to pay off your car loan if you can. You could do like the snowball method. You could do really any method that would work for you. I can also do videos on different techniques to pay down debt, but I do have debt right now. So if I do that, we're going to have to do like a buddy system where you're watching me pay off my debt. So debt to income ratio, keep that in mind. That's going to also give you an idea of what kind of budget you could have for your home, because your monthly payment has to be that 35% or less of your monthly income. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is researching the house market in your desired area. I was lazy and I didn't move far at all from where I was living. I was living like maybe a 10-minute drive from where I'm at right now. So you do want to research where you're moving to, especially if you're moving to a new town, a new city, a new state. You want to research things about it. You want to look on Zillow, get a feel for the homes and their prices. I would also recommend, quick aside, before you go touring homes, make a list of absolute necessities for what you want in your home. Be like, I need a garage, I need a big yard, or whatever you need in your life, make a list of that so you can narrow down the options, because I didn't do that and I kind of just took whatever I could get in the area and the time. But I would still recommend looking into that going forward so that you know what kind of environment you're going to be putting yourself into, because I'm comfortable in the area that I'm in, but certain members of my family doesn't like the area that we're living in because it's not the best area, and that's partially why we got it so cheap. It's not a bad area. There's not like people shooting guns outside, but there are the cops every now and then, and there's a lot of traffic in the area that we're in, so that's not great. You also, if you have kids, look into schooling zones, look into a work commute based on like where your job is. Again, I'm really lucky on that front. My job is walkable from where I live, so that's super awesome, something to take into mind and keep in consideration when you're looking for where you're moving to. All very important things. The next segment of this is choosing your loan type. Now, I went with FHA loan, first time homeowners loan, because it was ideal for my situation. Everyone's in a different situation. There is a bunch of different types of loans that you can get in the USA specifically. The conventional loan is the most popular loan. It is what you'll hear people talking about. It's why a lot of people think that they can't afford a home, because with the conventional loan, you need 620 plus on your credit. Like, absolutely, it's a must, it's required, which is if you're starting off with no credit, it's going to take you a minute to get there probably. You need 20% of the house price as your down payment. And that's why most people, again, think that they can't afford a home, because they think that conventional loan is what they're going to be using, and they need to have 20% to put down on their home, which is only the case in conventional loans. And that is also, there are pros and cons to getting the conventional loan. Like, with the conventional loan, you can buy a home that needs work. So like, if you do have a chunk of money, like you have a bunch of money saved up, let's say you're one of those crazy people that has like $30,000 that you're sitting on like a dragon. Like, one of my friends has a bunch of money that she sits on, and my brother does that too, where they have a bunch of money and they hoard it like a dragon. They could get a conventional loan, and then they could buy basically any house without meeting certain requirements from the loan agency. Because when you're putting that much money down, they kind of don't care about the stakes as much. So you could buy a home that needs renovated, you could buy a home that's completely gutted and like DIY it, you could buy a plot of land, I think, I'm pretty sure, with a conventional loan. So your options are a little bit more open if you're willing to put work into the property. I did not want to do that. And I also didn't want to save 20% down because I wanted to move quick and not have to do that. The next loan is the FHA. I had the FHA loan. It, in my opinion, is really good for first-time homeowners because that's what it is. It's the FHA loan. It is more affordable than the other loan types. Maybe me crying out there. So for the FHA loan, you need 500 plus on your credit score. 500 to 520 is acceptable for them. Higher is better. You're more likely to get accepted with it higher, but you probably will with at least 500 as well, as long as you've meeting all of the other qualifications. My poor cat wants to get in here, but he'll eat all my plants, so I can't let him in here right now. For the FHA, you need to only put 3.5% down of your home payment, which is not anything crazy. So let me actually math up what mine was real quick. I gotta go into my calculator here. So I don't think it was anything crazy. I don't know how to math percentages, so I have to go to my favorite website, Percentage Calculator. It always helps me with that. Okay, so my house cost about $65,000, which isn't bad. It's really cheap, actually. Super happy and grateful my house only cost that much. But my 3.5% down payment was about $2,275, which is about the price of, honestly, in the area that I'm living in, that is the down payment for an apartment. That's like first and last month's rent and your deposit for your apartment. So $22,075, I think that's what I just said, to own your home. It's going to be a little bit more than that because there's also closing costs and other costs that go into it. But that is your sole down payment. It makes it seem so much more affordable, like, immediately. One downside of the FHA loan versus the conventional is when you get the FHA loan, you have to have insurance on your home. You're required to have mortgage insurance and homeowners insurance, which is expensive. I had a really bad experience with mine. I can talk about it. I can make a story time about it if you guys want, but I don't really want to talk about it right now because I don't want to think about it and it pisses me off. Hate it. But yeah, so you don't need insurance on a conventional loan, I don't believe, if I am remembering correctly. I have my notes, but I like to do like minimalist notes, so most of it's off the dome. The next type of loan is the rural loan or USDA loan. You can only get these types of loans in rural areas. It's usually to encourage people to live in them and to keep the population at a certain rate, keep people in the area. Only rural areas. Again, I could have applied for that in the area that I'm in, but I just didn't want to. I wanted to do FHA loan. I probably could have done it. They require no down payment, but they do, on the other hand, require 2 years of proof of income. So it's gonna be best if you get the rural loan if you've had the same job for 2 or 3 years. That way they can know that you're for sure gonna pay it, because with no down payment, your monthly payments are gonna be higher. Anything that you don't pay up front, you will pay for later, and it'll cost more later because of interest. Super fun. Super fun. Another thing is when you are getting the loan, you want a fixed rate escrow payment. You don't want anything else, because you could buy a house and then in 5 years your escrow payment could double if you don't have that fixed rate. So it's very important to make sure that it is a fixed rate, just so you don't have any surprises. Like if you refinance and you know it's gonna change, that's one thing, but you don't want anything to come out of the blue and surprise you. The next slide that I have is about pre-approval. So I went and did pre-approval, I want to say 6 months or so before I ended up actually buying my house, but I started hunting for places that were going to pre-approve me like a year and a half before I bought my house. I had so many places tell me that my credit wasn't good enough, that I needed more income, I needed better work history. My nose itches really bad today. Something that I would recommend is going to local banks or local mortgage providers and asking them if you could see if you would be qualified for pre-approval, and if not, if they would give you advice on how to best pursue being able to apply for a pre-approval. So the options for getting a mortgage pre-approval would be, number one, I would say local banks. If you have a bank that you go to, that would probably be the first step, especially if you have an established relationship with your bankers. That would be super awesome, super easy. That way you know the people that you're talking to, they'll give you good advice, because again, they want to make that money off you and your interest, so they should help you. Second, personal bank. Yeah, personal bank, local banks, any local banks you could go to and ask. I would recommend your personal bank first, and then if they're not giving you great rates or great advice, you could go to other local banks and ask them. Third, local mortgage lenders are also an option. There are, in most towns, there are individual companies that provide mortgage, like loans and payments to people. I tried calling a couple of them and they never answered me, probably because I worked at McDonald's, but that is okay. That's why you have multiple options and you call around and you ask on what the process will take. So I have written here that you need to have your bank statements readily available, provide proof of employment, and you also need written proof of how much you're paying for rent and all of your living expenses. So when I was staying with my boyfriend and his mom, it was super easy. I just had them write up a check saying basically that I was living there rent-free. I was paying them like $200 to help with the rent and whatnot. But it was so little that they just had put that I was living there rent-free, so it looked like my monthly expenses were like, and that helped me out a lot. If you live in an apartment and your rent's like $800, then you'll just need a letter from your landlord stating that your rent is $800 and that you pay your rent every month. That way they know how much you're paying, and they'll base what you can afford based on what you're already paying as well. So that helps them kind of decipher what you're used to paying. And again, if you're paying $800 for rent and your mortgage is only going to be $650, you're probably fine. They will also do a hard credit check on you when you're going for pre-approval. This will drop your credit score somewhat significantly. I think mine dropped mine by like 20 or 30 points, but it's just because they're checking all the dirty details of your credit and making sure it won't lower it while they're looking at it. It'll lower it after they look at it. So it should be fine. that your score is slightly lower after the credit check, and it'll come back up after a couple months too on its own. You don't have to work for it. It'll just come back up to where it was. The next thing after your pre-approval, after you're already pre-approved, is going to be having your funds available. You want to have all that money that you've saved up. And mind you, I will say this real quick. You want to make sure that you're not, don't hoard cash unless it's for personal expenses, because if you have a bunch of cash and you put it into your account, they're going to have red flags go off. They want to have all of the income in your account that you're using to be verifiable. At least they did with my FHA loan. I might be different with a conventional loan, but I'm sure for FHA and USDA that you need to have a record of where your money came from, how much money you were getting, and what you spent it on. Like, they're not gonna look into your money and be like, you spent $48 on the Bag Dragon, you can't buy a home. They're not gonna do that. But they do wanna make sure that it's coming from a reliable source and it's gonna keep coming in, keep flowing again. They gotta make their goddamn money somehow. They're gonna make sure they can make it off of you. So again, I would say just don't like hoard cash. If you're making money from like a side hustle and you're getting cash in that, I would say use that for personal expenses, use that for groceries, use that for going out to eat, use that for going to like appointments or anything else that you can use cash for that is not going to be like put into your bank account if you're already saving cash, because I did that too. You need to gather your adequate funds for your purchase. So if it is an FHA loan, you're going to need about 3.5% of your home price, and it could be anywhere from 3.5 to 5% of your home price. It's probably going to be closer to 3.5, but I would say 5% just to be safe. My closing costs total, again, my down payment was only about like $2,300. I'm just going to round it up for ease sake because I can't remember that 4-digit number. I don't have it written down. I can't remember it. So I'm gonna round it up to $3,000 was my down payment for my house, and then my closing costs were about another $3,000. So I would honestly just math up about what you need and then double it, honestly, double or triple it. If you're buying a house that's like $60,000 or $70,000, I would want to have $6,000 or $7,000. I keep like hiccuping and burping. I would want to have $6,000 or $7,000 in your account. That way you know that you can cover everything, because on top of your down payment and your closing costs, you're going to have a few things that you're going to have to pay for. Like, you're going to have to pay for an inspection, multiple different types of inspections, actually. You're going to have to pay to get the paperwork signed over. That's like $200 or $300. The inspections are all $200 or $300 each. And then, as well as that, for insurance, I had such a bad experience with my insurance. I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but I found out like a week before I was signing the closing paperwork for my house that I had to pay the entire year for my homeowner's insurance up front, and that was about $2,600 that I had to pay up front with a week to come up with it. So that is why I did have help. Very grateful to have had that help. Very grateful. But just keep in mind that might be something that jumps out and gets you, because I had no idea that that was even going to happen to me. And if not, I would have had enough money to pay for everything. But because I didn't know I was going to have to pay it all up front, I thought it was just going to be monthly, and I started the first month on the first month that I moved in. No. And I don't know if that was my company or if that's a wide thing, but I would look into that and make sure that your company that you're getting insurance from is, make sure that you know you have enough money to pay for it, because it's very annoying. Also, another thing that I had to pay off when I closed on my house, when I signed all my paperwork, I had to pay off all the credit card debt that I had at the moment. I'm sure this is only the case for FHA loans. I had to pay, I think I had to pay like $600, which is not that bad. I didn't have that much credit card debt at the time, but I did have to pay it all. I wrote like one big check for all of my closing costs, and that was included into that. So the bank took it and they just divvied it up and they paid off all my stuff for me. So if you have any credit card debt, keep that in mind. You'll have to add that to your total amount of money as well. And then inspection costs, again, I just brought that up a minute ago. They're going to want to test the walls for lead, more than likely. I think you can opt out of that. But they're going to want to test the wall paints for lead. They're going to want to test for CO2 gas in the house. They're going to want to test for radon. They might test for asbestos. Just really anything that is necessary to make sure is not in the house before you purchase it. Sometimes you get lucky and you'll have a build that was built in a certain time frame that you know for a fact, like most of those things aren't going to be in it, so it might only need like a CO2 and a radon test. I had to get all of the tests because my house is over 100 years old, so I had to test for everything and make sure about $150 to $200 for each inspection. You'll also have to have someone come and assess the property value, which I think happens a little bit earlier. You do have to pay for that though as well. They'll come to your house, they'll crawl in the attic if you have an attic, they'll do a whole tour, they'll like tippity tap 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 on the walls, they'll like look around. You probably won't be there when it happens, but they're just assessing the value of your house basically to make sure it lines up with what the seller is selling for. And then working with a real estate agent. You can choose to work with a real estate agent, or you could not. I would recommend working with a real estate agent though, because it is very helpful, especially when you don't know all the ins and outs of buying a house. I'm very grateful for my real estate agent. We went and viewed 2 houses, and the first one we went into, I really wanted this house. It was like $30,000, super cute flooring, great location in my opinion, not a great location in the grand scheme of the town that we live in. I wanted that house. We went in and like the flooring and the wall where it connected, it had a gap about this big, and I put my arm in it and it went down to about here, and I was touching the foundation, and I was like, so my real estate agent was like, you do not want this house. Like, I cannot sell you this house on FHA. It won't be approved. There are certain things that deem homes under FHA loans unlivable. So that is something else to consider. If it has foundational issues, if it doesn't have a newer roof. My knees hurt really bad, so I need to resituate my knees and my hips. It might not be livable. If it's not in like good livable condition, then you'll have to either fix it and pay for all the repairs before you can even buy it, or they just will not accept you to buy it. So that is another thing to think of. You're not going to be able to go on FHA loan and go buy a $30,000 house that was like a hoarder home that needs renovated, unfortunately, as much as that sucks. So you want to work with a real estate agent to find your house. They have information, they have more listings than the typical person. They usually actually pay a fee for like their own little social media where they get on there and they can see all the homes that are about to come up. I actually copped this house before it went on the market. He told me, he's like, this house, it's going up like in 3 days. I can view it with you today, and then if you want it, you'll have first dibs. And I did that, and then I was like, yes, perfect, I want this house. I love this house in my house. Perfect. Super awesome. You can also know that when you're going through a real estate agent, the homeowner usually pays for the realty fees. Think of it as like a brand paying for an advertisement. Like the consumer doesn't pay for the advertisement, the seller does. So usually you're working with a real estate agent, you're not gonna have to pay them anything because their money is gonna come out of the home money that you're giving to the homeowner after it sells. Super cool. And make sure I didn't skip anything. Yeah, the home inspection, after you're viewing your homes, you decide what home you want to get with your real estate agent. You're going to have to do that inspection of safety hazards. You're going to have that final appraisal done, which is, I touched on a minute ago, when the inspector comes in and they tippity tap 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 and they check everything, make sure it's all good and livable. You should pass for that. The buyer, which is you, me, will pay for the inspection fees and the appraisal fees. So you're gonna have to pay to have someone come appraise the property and someone to do all those inspections as well. I think the appraisal was like $100 and the inspection was like $250 for this specific house. It's a smaller house, got some annoying bits and places to get into though, so that's super fun. Just keep in mind that you're gonna have to pay for those. So have like $500 or $600 ready extra for those things. The next step after you have talked to your real estate agent, you have all the inspections done, you have your credit in a good position, you're already approved for your loan. The next thing is closing, which is super awesome and fun. You go meet probably at a big round table with the seller, your real estate agent, yourself, and probably a notary as well. And they'll give you all these forms of paperwork to sign. You sign like 100 papers. Do read them if you can. I did not read any of mine. I skimmed them. I would not recommend doing that. You want to read all your paperwork if you can. Sign it. You'll feel like a doctor at the end of it. You won't even know what your signature is anymore. You're going to have to sign papers like 60 or 70 times probably. Super fun. And then at that meeting as well, you'll make your final payments. Like you'll give them your check and then they'll give you the keys and then you own your home. It's so awesome. I'm trying to think about if there's anything that I don't have on my little slide list that would be important to mention. I'm gonna pause this for one moment and then come back if I think of anything else. Okay, so the main points of advice that I have on the situation. I don't know why I'm so itchy, like right here. I keep getting pimples right there, so maybe I'm about to get one and that's what it's itching for. Research everything you can. Some states require you to take actually a homeowner's class before you buy a house. The state that I live in does not require that, but I still took one just for fun. I can link it down below. It was a free course. It goes over a lot of the same stuff that I went over in this video. It's like your debt to income ratio, how much money you need, the steps in getting to where you can get approved for your loan and all that. Would definitely recommend that. I would talk to people around you who are homeowners if you have any peers that are homeowners, especially if they bought within the last 5 to 10 years, then their advice would probably be applicable. If they bought a house 20 or 30 years ago, I don't know if it would be as applicable, but you could still talk to them and see if you could get advice or insight out of them. It's always helpful. I didn't really have that. I had a little bit of that with some of the coworkers that I had and people that were trying to buy at the same time. So I would always recommend talking to people and networking if you can. But other than that, I apologize. This video, I tried to keep very organized and go point by point and tell all the things about the process of buying my home. I know it was a more like, it's not like stream of consciousness, but I feel like I went point by point and I didn't talk about like my personal experience. If you guys want, I could talk about my personal experience more. I had everything go pretty smooth for the most part. Like I didn't really have many issues except for with the insurance part. And then the first couple of homes that I looked at were really dookie caca bad. So that was super fun and interesting to go look at dookie caca houses until I finally found this house. I want to be making more videos because I'm on a break from my job right now. So if you guys want, comment down below and let me know what types of videos you want from me. I am interested in doing like finance videos, budgeting videos. I can do credit advice videos, but I also want to do like fun other types of videos. It just depends really on what I'm feeling at any given point in the day. I have time now though, which I very rarely have because I'm a workaholic. So thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I will respond to your comments. And if it's something that's like a big, like broad topic, I can make another video about that too. And also, I know that you guys can find this information in other forms. You could find other people talking about the same thing. And again, I'm not trying to sound tone deaf and say that anybody could buy a house, but I really do think that mostly anybody could buy a home. When I bought my house, I was working at McDonald's and I was making $15.90 an hour when the minimum wage in Illinois was $15 an hour. So I was making 90 cents above minimum wage and I still got approved and I have a super cool house. Like it's got its issues at the end of the day, but it's nothing that I can't live with and I'm far happier here than I would be in a rental property. I got like a little fruit fly from my plants coming and trying to get me. But also just for representation's sake, because I will see a bunch of like finance bros talking about this or like people that look like they definitely had hella help. But I never see like crusty little guys like me talking about stuff like this. So if you want advice from like a crusty little guy, like I'm scared to call and order a pizza, but I still bought a house. Like I'm scared to go into Walmart by myself, like, but I still bought a house. So it is achievable if you make it the mindset of yours that you can achieve it, then you can. And I want people that are either my age, I'm 23 right now, either my age or younger than me to have hope and know that they can do these things. Don't just completely write it out because it's hard. Anything that's worth doing is going to be hard. It's going to be stressful. But again, if it's worth doing, it's probably going to be hard. So that is just my tidbit for today. And I will leave you guys with that. Hopefully you guys have a lovely rest of your day or night whenever you're watching. Thank you. Let me know any questions. I will respond or make another more in-depth video about.